Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Diri Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Seva Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtaki. So continuing with the discussion on Srimadbhagawatam, Canto 3, Chapter 6. Chapter 6, Creation of the Universal Form, text number 4 onwards. So Maitreya Muni is further telling Vidurji. Prabhuddha karma devena triyovinshati ko ganaha prerito ajanya swabhir matra abhir adhipurusham. When the 23 principal elements were set in action by the will of the Supreme, the gigantic universal form, or the Vishwarupa body of the Lord came into existence. So when all these 23 elements, so if we remember 5 working senses, 5 knowledge acquiring senses, 5 sense objects of each of those, so 20, then Mahatattva, time, and the false ego. Not the time, sorry. False ego and mind. So these are the 23 elements listed in the previous verses. And when they were set in action by the will of the Supreme, and we also studied, so these 23 elements are all material, there is nothing spiritual. And when Lord Vishnu entered along with Kali, Kali is energy of the Lord, material energy. So when they entered, then they were set in action, otherwise there was no activity. And then the Vishwarupa body of the Lord came into existence. Vishwarupa, as we have studied earlier, like different planets and different 8,400,000 species of life and different creation on different planets. Everything came into existence. The Virat Rupa or Vishwarupa, the gigantic universal form of the Lord, which is very much appreciated by the impersonalist, is not an eternal form of the Lord. It is manifested by the supreme will of the Lord after the ingredients of material creation. Lord Krishna exhibited this Virat or Vishwarupa to Arjuna just to convince the impersonalist that he is the original personality of Godhead. So the reason was he wanted to convince the impersonalist. Of course, they're still not convinced. That's a different story. That he is the original personality of Godhead means everything exists in him, whether it is Virat Rupa, whether it is four-handed Vishnu Rupa, whether it is four-handed Paramatma Rupa. Everything emanates from him and everything exists in him. Or whether it is Brahm Jyoti, everything rests upon him. Krishna exhibited the Virat Rupa. It is not that Krishna was exhibited by the Virat Rupa. So Virat Rupa is subservient to Krishna. It's lower in its existence. It comes from Krishna. And it is material at the same time. The Virat Rupa is not therefore an eternal form of the Lord exhibited in the spiritual sky. It is a material manifestation of the Lord. The Archa-Vigraha or the worshipable deity in the temple is a similar manifestation of the Lord for the neophytes. But in spite of the material touch, such forms of the Lord as a Virat and Archa are all non-different from his eternal form as Lord Krishna. They are non-different, but they are not spiritual at the same time. In fact, this is how we should approach Mother Nature and every creation in the Mother Nature, that everything has its relationship with the Lord. Everything has its existence in the Lord. Everything is part of the Lord. So how much careful we should be in dealing with everything. Much more we should be careful when we are dealing with the devotees of the Lord, because they're very, very close to the heart of the Lord. They're very dear to the Lord. But even the material elements, they all come from Krishna and they all have their relationship with Krishna. Prabhupada explained, he gave us an example of sometimes when we are angry and we throw things or we bang the door, because the first place that we can take out our anger is on the door. I don't know why, the poor door. But considering that is also dear to Krishna, so we should not be banging on the doors or throwing material things here and there, breaking of things. Why? Text 5. Parena vishata swasmin matraya vishwasriganah chukshubhanya anyam asadya yasmin lokaschara charaha. As the Lord in his plenary portion entered into the elements of the universal creation, they transformed into the gigantic form in which all the planetary systems and all movable and immovable creations rest. As the Lord in his plenary portion entered into the elements of the universal creation, so then they transformed into the gigantic form. So before the Lord entered, all the elements were there, but they were not doing anything. Even the demigods could not do anything till they got the knowledge and the strength from the Lord. The elements of cosmic creation are all matter and have no potency to increase in volume unless entered into by the Lord in his plenary portion. This means that matter does not increase or decrease unless it is spiritually touched. Matter is a product of spirit and increases only by the touch of spirit. The entire cosmic manifestation has not assumed its gigantic form by itself, as wrongly calculated by less intelligent persons. As long as spirit is within matter, matter can increase as needed. But without the spirit, matter stops increasing. For example, as long as there is spiritual consciousness within the material body of a living entity, the body increases to the required size. But a dead material body which has no spiritual consciousness stops increasing. In fact, it shrinks because elements start going away. The sky element or the water element, the air element, the fire element starts going away. Then the dead body in fact shrinks. So how Prabhupada is explaining that the matter increases in size because the spirit is there. So the doctors, when they claim, those who are used to committing abortions, when they claim that up to whatever 5 months or 3 months, whatever the time they say it is okay, till that time there is no soul in the body. There is soul from the very first day. When the sperm meets the egg, that very day the soul is there in the sperm. And that's how the body starts growing inside the womb of the mother. Without the soul being there, the body cannot grow. Even the womb, the embryo, it cannot grow if the soul is not there. It's not just a combination of chemicals. Chemicals you can combine as long as we want, but they don't grow into anything. But this part, because the doctors and the scientists, they used or they want to commit all these sinful activities, so they have given an excuse. And people in India also, doctors in India also are following that nonsense philosophy. The entire cosmic body increased by the same process that we experience in our small bodies. One should not, however, foolishly think that the individual infinitesimal soul is a cause of the gigantic manifestation of the universal form. The universal form is called the Virata Rupa because the Supreme Lord is within it in his plenary portion. So that's why he got such a huge body, universal form. That soul and the soul inside this body or soul inside the body of an ant or a mosquito is not the same. That is super soul, and this we have the jivatmas. Of course, we have super soul also within our body, but the function of super soul in our body is different. Text 6. Hiranmaya sapurusha sahasra parivatsaran andakosha vasapsu sarvas sattvopa. The gigantic Virat Purusha, known as Hiranmaya, lived for 1,000 celestial years on the water of the universe, and all the living entities lay with him. After the Lord entered each and every universe as Garbhodaksha Vishnu, half of the universe was filled with water. The cosmic manifestation of the planetary systems, outer space, etc., which are visible to us, is only one half of the complete universe. Before the manifestation takes place and after the entrance of Vishnu within the universe, there is a period of 1,000 celestial years. From our side, it's very long, but from Vishnu's side, from Vishnu's viewpoint, it's not at all long. All the living entities injected within the womb of the Mahatattva are divided in all the universes with the incarnation of Garbhodaksha Vishnu, and all of them lie down with the Lord until Brahma is born. Brahma is the first living being within the universe, and from him all other demigods and living creatures are born. Manu is the original father of mankind, and therefore in Sanskrit, mankind is called Manushya. Humanity in different bodily qualities is distributed throughout the various planetary systems. So all the jivas, they come from the body of Mahavishnu, and when Mahavishnu glances at each and every universe, they enter every universe. So one particular universe they entered. So Brahmaji is still appearing, and I mean there's a time lag, and he is going to do his tapasya. So for 1,000 celestial years. So from our calculation, it's about 36,000 years. All the living entities lie with the Garbhodaksha Vishnu on this Garbhodak Sagar. They lie down with the Lord until Brahma is born. So can we even imagine all the jivas, souls, which are so tiny, 10,000 part of the tip of the hair? We all were with Lord Garbhodaksha Vishnu for 1,000 celestial years. Till Brahmaji started creating different species, and every soul will get into different species according to his previous desires, previous karma, previous consciousness, when he died, and then the activity started. Text 7. Sa vai vishvasrijam garbho devakarmatma shaktiman vibhajatma manatmanam ekada dashadha tridaha. The total energy of the Mahatattva in the form of the gigantic Virat Rupa divided himself by himself into the consciousness of the living entities. The life of activity and self-identification, which are subdivided into 1, 10, and 3 respectively. So Prabhupada will explain what is this 1, 10, and 3. Consciousness is a sign of the living entity or the soul. The existence of soul is manifest in the form of consciousness called Gyan Shakti. The total consciousness is that of the gigantic Virat Rupa, and the same consciousness is exhibited in individual persons. The activity of consciousness is performed through the air of life, which is of 10 divisions. The airs of life are called Pran, Apan, Udan, Vayan, Saman, and are also differently qualified as Naga, Kurma, Krikara, Devadatta, and Dhananjaya. The consciousness of the soul becomes polluted by the material atmosphere, and thus various activities are exhibited in the false ego of bodily identification. These various activities are described in Bhagavad Gita as Bahushaka Hirantasha. The conditioned soul is bewildered into various activities for want of pure consciousness. In pure consciousness, the activity is one. Consciousness of the individual soul becomes one with the supreme consciousness when there is complete synthesis between the two. So, lots of technical knowledge, and I know everybody must be thinking, what are we studying here? Gita Bhagavatam is full of stories, wonderful pastimes of Krishna with the gopis. But here, there's so much of technical knowledge. Okay. So when in the shloka it is said, the Virat Rupa, the total energy of Mahatattva in the form of gigantic Virat Rupa, divided himself by himself into the consciousness of the living entities. So total energy of the Virat Rupa, it divided himself, means divided the energy. Now all the elements are there, all the planets are there, but there are 8,400,000 species, and in that 8,400,000, there are, in every species there are millions and millions and millions of living entities. Now they are divided into 1, 10, and 3 respectively. So 10 is 10 types of prana. So consciousness is divided. How it is divided? So Prabhupada says, or he is explaining, consciousness is a sign of the living entity of the soul. The symptom of the soul, the symptom that the soul is present in a body is that body is conscious. So consciousness is a sign of the living entity. The existence of the soul is manifest in the form of consciousness. So that is the same thing. Now Prabhupada further says, the activity of consciousness is performed through the air of life, which is called, which are 10 divisions. So activity of consciousness. So consciousness is, inner consciousness is spread all over the body. Soul is in the heart, but the consciousness is all over the body. How it is all over the body is through these 10 kinds of life airs in the body. So it is also mentioned later on in Bhagavad Gita that the soul is sitting on these 10 airs in the heart, but these 10 airs, they keep on going in and out, and the soul is floating on these 10 airs. And what are these 10 airs are called? It's not only prana. Prana is one air. Prana, apana, udana, vayana, saman, and are also differently qualified as Naga, Kurma, Krikara, Devatat, and Dhananjaya. So these 10 life airs are there. So consciousness, we can say it is divided. But now the consciousness, the shloka says is divided into 1, 10, and 3. So 1 is when it is pure consciousness. Pure consciousness means it doesn't mean 1 means it has merged into universal consciousness. Means it has synthesized. It has come up to that spiritual level. It is purified to that spiritual level. So that consciousness is pure. Then it is called 1. The consciousness of the individual soul becomes one with the supreme consciousness when there is complete synthesis between the two. Means there is no difference of any desires. Now what is 3? The 3 is still there. So that we'll study further in the next paragraph. The monist believes that there is only one consciousness, whereas the sattvatas or the devotees believe that although there is undoubtedly one consciousness, they are one because there is agreement. The individual consciousness is advised to dovetail with the Supreme Consciousness as instructed by the Lord in the Bhagavad Gita, Sarva Dharman Parityaja. The individual consciousness, Arjuna, is advised to dovetail with the Supreme Consciousness and thus maintain its conscious purity. It is foolish to try to stop the activities of consciousness, but they can be purified when they are dovetailed with the Supreme. This consciousness is divided into three modes of self-identification according to proportion of purity: Adhyatmika, Adibhautika, and Adidevika. Okay, before that, sorry, the three that we were talking about. The three Prabhupada explains it should be the three modes of material nature. Yeah, the consciousness of the soul becomes polluted by the material atmosphere, and thus various activities are exhibited in the false ego of bodily identification. And these various activities are described in Bhagavad Gita. So they are exhibited in bodily identification in three modes: mode of goodness, mode of passion, mode of ignorance. So that is where it is called three. So now, towards the end of the purport, Prabhupada is saying that we can purify our consciousness, and they're different according to proportion of purity. So adhyatmika, or self-identification with the body and the mind. So that is first level of purity, that we don't identify with the body and mind. Adibhautika, or self-identification with the material products. We don't identify with that. And then Adidevika, or self-identification as a servant of the Lord. Of the three, Adidevika, self-identification, is the beginning of purity of consciousness in pursuance of the desire of the Lord. So this is the level of purification from going up from bodily consciousness to the universal consciousness, and to the identification as servant of the Lord. So that is the level of purity. I know it's lots of technical information here, so I'll stop here. See anybody has any questions or comments. So please go over this purport 2-3 times, and something will sink in. So I guess no questions, then we can stop here. You all have a wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. Jai Shri Prabhupada.